What's going on? David and Paolo, we're here again.
Hey, nice.
So today we decided to do something a bit different. We're gonna walk the crowd through our platform with real life examples of companies we've been following. We wanted to invest, and I think moving forward, we're gonna make it like a fun thing where we meet once a week and kind of like see what these companies did, and kind of like explain the crowd how we're using in live our system, what we built. Again, everything started with us needing this tool in order to make better investment decisions. So that's when we decided to start sharing it with the public. And I think here with David and Paolo, I think we're going to be able to get some nice examples. What do you guys think?
I love it.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I think it's a wonderful idea. I mean, we're all coming back from a great investor conference in Las Vegas, right? Where we were able to go ahead and sit and talk to other individuals, investors, right? And really understand that everybody needs this type of software, this type of product, a way to track the companies that they want to be invested in or already invested in, or their mothers are invested in, or fathers, or whoever it might be. So I think the feedback really is that this is something that's needed. It's something that gives people the access to the information, to the disclosure for this, for the potential investment. So I think it was a great show, and I think we're only going to learn out of this.
Incredible. So with that being said, Paolo, maybe kind of like share your screen, walk us through. Why do you love this system so much? Why have you been using it day and night? Why are you dreaming of David Slings?
Okay, so just so you know, guys, this is a new account, so we can walk you through everything that's going on, so you can see it as when you guys start to, test the application, use it, so you can understand and you can see what's going on. Okay, so over here, as soon as you log in, you have the dashboard, so you can keep track of everything that you're looking at, companies, filings, keywords. Of course, this is going to be delivered to your email as well. But if you want to see it in the application, it's here. Okay. Now, starting up, we're talking about, I think, last podcast about company alerts, right? And filings, and why do we need to track companies' filings, and why we need to stay on top of that. So over here is the part in the software where you can track all of that. All right. So over here, you can just add companies, you can track, you can decide what type of filing you want to track. Maybe you're not interested in knowing, insider buying or selling, which you should, but maybe you're not interested, right? So if you're not interested, you can just click out of that box and not get any notification. All right. So as David said, we're just coming back from a trip. So we're looking at companies, looking at investors. So there are some companies that just caught our attention, right? So let's add a company, right? So you can see how the process works. So a company that comes to mind is...
By the way, it's very important to add here that we are not only tracking SEC reporting company, we also tracking here alternative reporting companies that currently we didn't find any software that actually does that. So this is something that it's important to mention. So I know on the top left side it says SEC filing alerts, but we actually tracking all public companies, alternative reporting as well.
That's a great point, Ari. And we haven't to this moment we haven't found another software that tracks OTC filing companies. So that's a huge plus for us. It's been massive for us, trying to. There's nobody tells you when OTC companies file, and that's massive for us to be able to know, right? So that's a great feature that we already have over here. So let's go ahead and add a company, right? Just so you can see the process. Company that comes to mind is Hover, HOVR, New Horizon Aircraft. So you just write the ticker and you're going to see a lot of companies over here. Like maybe you don't know exactly the ticker. It's fine. It's going to find it for you over here. So you can check that you're adding the company that you want to track. Okay. So you just click here, you can see the company name. And now you choose which filing you want to track. All right, so we want to track everything. So we're gonna click.
We tried to do it as, try to make it as easy as possible for you guys too. So if you hover over, it tells you what's periodic, what's a proxy, what's registration. Those are the types of filings that we could think of that you'd be able to kind of track and understand.
And of course, we're going to have in the high school, in the education section, we're going to have videos that kind of like explain. It's not on right now, but the idea is that we're going to make video of every type of report that's going to help investors to kind of understand what it is and what's the purpose of each section.
Yeah, exactly. We want to make it as easy and accessible for new investors. So we're not just here to give you a tool, we're also here to educate. So later down the road, we're going to explain the type of filings, what did they say. We're probably going to run through some examples. So that's coming. All right. So, but right now you can just hover and you can see the type of filing, right, that we can come up with that are inside the category that we think they are. Okay. So we want to track everything for New Horizon aircraft. We want to track everything. So it's just as easy as click add alert and the company is going to be added successfully. So you can see over here the types of filing that you are tracking, and you can just eliminate it if you don't want to keep receiving alerts. It's important to note that all of the filings, you're going to get an alert in the application over here where it says recent notifications. You're going to see over here if the company filed, if they increase their outstanding. If there's a keyword, you're going to see it over here, but you're going to get an alert in your email as well. Okay. So you can add, we can add another company. Let's say that we want to add, I don't know, comes to mind, Security Matters Public Limited Company. Okay. And let's say that for this one, we only wanted to track periodic filings, so 10Ks, 10Qs, proxies, and news. So 8Ks. That's all we want to track for this one. It's fine. You just click it, add alert, and that's it. And as you can see over here, these ones are crossed out. So you're not going to be getting any alerts. So you can tailor this to whatever information you want to get for each company.
If on day one I didn't want the registrations to be coming up or whatnot, but down the road in like a week or two from now, as I become more and more heavily invested in the company, I kind of do care about it. Can I go back and click that I want that type of alert?
Yeah, definitely. So over here, in whatever company you want to modify, you scroll over to the right and you can just click over here. All right. So let's say that you want to track registration.
That's awesome. That's so easy.
And you want to add insider, you just click it and you just update.
Amazing.
That's done.
Thank you.
And if you want to take it off, you can just take it off. For example, let's say that for hover, I don't want to know about regulation or registrations. You can just click it off, update the alert, and that's done.
Perfect.
It's just tailored to whatever you need at the moment. Okay. Now, another important thing that you need to track, perhaps the most important, dilution. Okay. So if the company is issuing shares, if they're issuing shares to another investor, if they're canceling shares, you want to know. Okay. And you can track that as well. So over here, you're just going to click at the diluted. Diluted because they're looting you, right? They're robbing you of your gains. They're robbing you of your pie. So it's important to track, right? You need to know.
They're looting you. They're doodling on you.
All the D's.
Doing it all.
The triple D's.
It's bad. It's bad. Okay. And over here, you can see we have a little box that says, what it does, right? So the dilution tracker is very simple. It just monitors the changes in a company's outstanding shares. And over here, we just put this over here, again, trying to educate. We want to educate. We want to give everybody the tools to invest wisely. Let's put it that way. All right. So let's go back to the companies that we just added, which cover.
So I think here we should add companies that we actually, want to see live dilution on a weekly basis, because we're going to start connecting on a weekly basis and kind of like go over and kind of like see what those companies did. So I think it's going to be fun to share it with the viewer.
Yeah, definitely. You know, a week from now, we're going to be able to see what these companies did in terms of filing, in terms of dilution. So it's going to be a little experiment to see what the companies did. All right, so let's go back and add Hover, which is the company that we're tracking. So you can see over here, New Horizon Aircraft, and we're going to add it. Okay, that's good. So over here, you have in a graph and a table as well, the outstanding shares, historically, the free float, and you can see by how many shares it has changed in the past. So as you can see over here for Hover, it's a NASDAQ traded company, so it's not diluting itself that much. Okay, but if you go and track smaller companies, it may be different. So
now, one thing that's important to mention for the NASDAQ companies, you're probably going to see more history, where OTC companies, you're only going to start seeing the history from the date you enter the company inside your platform.
yeah,
So important to mention. So that's why in this case we have a lot of history, but when you're adding an alternative reporting, it's going to be you're going to start tracking the dilution from the date you added.
yeah, that's a very good point, Ari. And let's show them. Let me think. What company can we add? OTC. Let's do this. ATX. So over here, you can see that you're going to have a list for all the companies that you're adding.
Look at the difference between the outstanding shares and this guy versus HOVR. Just outstanding. That's 15.5 billion. Go back to HOVR real quick. 31 billion.
31 million.
Million, yeah, insane.
It's crazy. But that's why you need to keep track of it. Like,
Hey.
I'm sure that AITX a year ago, it wasn't 15.5 billion shares.
If you click show table, does any history come up?
No, and that's what Ari mentioned. So for alternative reporting companies or OTC companies, the outstanding shares are going to be tracked from the day you add it. So right now we only have the latest reading of the outstanding shares, but going forward, anytime the company increases its outstanding, you're gonna get an alert, of course, but it's gonna be recorded over here in the history. So for the companies that you've added, you're gonna be able to see the history. Okay. Okay, so now, guys, we're talking about the keyword alerts. Now, as we discussed previously, keywords are very important. And I think the greatest point is that they're tailored to what you want to know. Let's say if I want to know at this point in time which companies are affected by tariffs and what the directors are saying about that on the filings, I can just add a keyword. Let's say we're going to click over here, and whatever phrase, whatever keyword you want to track, you just write it over here, and the system is going to look for it. So let's say that I wanted to know which companies are talking about tariffs at this moment. So I'm just going to put in tariffs and add it over here to the alert. Right. So the system is going to look in filings, in every filing, SEC filings, that's important, in every SEC filing for the word tariffs. And when it finds it, it's going to let me know. I'm going to get an email. I'm going to get it over here and then notifications. And I'm going to see over here how many times it has been mentioned in the last week. Or let's say that I want to see or I want to know what Warren Buffett is doing and where he's being mentioned. Let's say that I'm a big fan of the guy, so I want to know. So I can just type Warren Buffett, add the alert, and every time he's mentioned in a filing, I'm gonna know. So this way you can track pretty much whatever you want to know. If it's another company acquiring another company, if it's big investor, the famous investors taking a position in a company, you're gonna know anything that you really want to know. If you want to track, let's say for AI, which at this point in time, you're gonna get a million hits on the keyword. But let's say that I wanted to know which companies are mentioning the word AI. So I'm gonna click it over
How about
here.
Bitcoin? I think Bitcoin we never hear of these days.
Mm.
So that's a good idea. So I want to know which companies are mentioning Bitcoin. So I can just add it.
What about if I liked, what if I was interested in knowing what kind of investment banking, let's say, a JP Morgan or a Deutsche Bank or one of the big guys is doing, or maybe one of the small guys. I don't know. Do we know any small guys that we want to follow? Some of the other banks that we care about what they do. Be fun to kind of monitor.
We can do JP Morgan. Just add it over here. What other, let's say that we wanted to know what Morgan Stanley's doing. We can add it over here. What other small bank do you want to add?
How about some of the private equity guys? What about if you put it like Sequoia?
You're gonna get a hit as well. It's not gonna be as accurate as if you write the whole name, but if you just write Sequoia, you're gonna get a hit.
What if I'm an interested investor in clinical trials, right? FDA approvals, stuff of that sort. What about putting some sort of like keyword that's related to a phase
So
something?
you can write FDA. You can add FDA. You can add maybe
We can do FDA phase 3, yeah,
phase
or just
2 or phase 3, or let's put it phase 3. So companies that are almost in the finish line. So let's add phase 3. You can add that as well.
Typically, depending on the company and how much money they have, I think what I've seen over the years is once they're in like a 2A, 2B, and they're showing some positive results, some big guys coming and just buying them out or licensing them or whatever it is. Should be interesting.
Yeah. And for example, let's say that you're an investor in biotech companies and you want to know if a company is probably being acquired by a big company, you can just say that I wanted to know what Pfizer is doing. So you can just add it over here. So this way you can track, I think the keyword tracker, keyword alert is very versatile. It allows you to track many different things. You can, if you're an M&A investor, like if you're talking about investing around some sort of event, you can track it over here. If you are the kind that follows another investor, let's say that you want to know what Warren Buffett is doing, what Bill Ackman is doing, what Carl Icahn is doing, you can just add it over here. If you're a macro investor and you want to invest around tariffs, you can just put it over here. If you want to invest, you're a tech investor and you want to know which companies are getting involved with AI, you can track it over here. If you're a crypto guy, you can track it over here. So I think the keyword tracker is very versatile in that it allows you to track pretty much wherever you want. And the moment that you're not interested, let's say that, it's a couple of years from now, tariffs are not the talk in town. I'm not interested in tracking what companies are doing. You can just delete it. And you're going to stop getting emails. You're going to stop getting alerts from it.
Yeah, once Bitcoin goes to zero, then you just delete it. Right?
Once they found out who...
David, I've always been a believer.
Always. Yeah.
Let's say that Bitcoin goes out of fashion and you don't want to track it anymore, so you can just delete
There you go.
it. And you can just start tracking Ethereum.
Very cool. Very cool. I really love the layout of the whole software too. I think it's very
Same. I think
I love the you can actually keep it at, right now we have it as dark mode. I think you can also click it as a light mode, I think, which is pretty cool too. It flows very well.
Change it. If you want to be wrong and put it to light mode, you can. If you want to be right, you can put it dark mode.
And I think we should keep all those names, and next week we can walk through the emails that we got for the past week and what type of information. So I think it's cool to leave it to leave some of those keywords
Put
large.
back, yeah, put Bitcoin back in there. I want to see how many companies come up with their new Bitcoin reserve all of a sudden.
As you're gonna see MicroStrategy. That's the only thing you're gonna be seeing in the Bitcoin alert.
And I think you're gonna see a lot of small companies too.
You see,
A lot of
they're all doing
miners, a
it.
lot of yeah.
And over here, like any hit on the
The best, though, hold on, while we're on that topic, the best part will be to see which one of these companies correlates with some sort of dilution happening as well, you know, and with the liquidity, which we haven't gotten to. But if you ask me, I have a feeling there's some sort of correlation that a company will come out there and say, we just bought a Bitcoin to keep in our reserve just in case, just this, that, whatever, and all of a sudden you'll see a spike in the shares.
Yeah,
I completely agree. It's gonna be fun to watch.
That's a good idea. Let's go ahead and add. Let's say it's Maxim Group, right? Am I correct? It is Maxim Group, no?
For what, the investment bank?
Yeah, the investment bank.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can just add it over here, and maybe if we see an increase in the outstanding and it correlates with Maxim Group being mentioned around that time, we can know that the company raised some money through Maxim as a bank. They issued some shares, and you're gonna be able to see the filing over here and the company alerts, and that way you can start piecing things together and understanding what's actually going on with your investments.
Correct.
It's gonna be interesting. This will be an interesting experiment once earnings start to come in, which I think they should be starting right now. Companies should be filing for their first quarter around this time, maybe in the next 2 weeks from now. So we're gonna start to see a lot of these keywords starting to hit, and a lot of filings as well. So I think it's a good time to experiment, to play around with this, to show you guys really the use case for our software.
Love it. All right, let's walk through the liquidity scanner. We talked about it on, I think, on our second or third episode, and maybe now it's a good opportunity to show live what is it, how does it work, why is it important. We can mention it again, you know. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so over here, the liquidity scanner. Let's just input and show them what it does. Okay, so let's say that we wanted to track.
Do some of the small companies.
Let's do AITX. Let's do AITX, a company that we mentioned a few minutes ago. Okay, so over here, it's good because it lets you choose which dates you want to see the liquidity. So let's say that we wanted to see the liquidity for 2025, all of 2025. So let's say we're going to start in January 1st, and we're going to end in today's date, which is April 28th. Okay. Now, what's cool about the liquidity scanner is that you can choose the period. So you can see daily liquidity if you want, or maybe you want to do weekly, or you want to do monthly. You can just choose it, and it's going to show over here. So let's go weekly. It's been 18 weeks in the year. So let's see. Okay, so we know for AITX. So the week starting on the 27th, which is today, well, yesterday, but the week starts on the Sunday, so it takes us as 27th. The stock traded 105 million shares. So sounds interesting, no? It could be, but you also need to take into consideration the price. You know, some companies trade billions of shares, but if the stock price is 0001, it's only going to be $10,000 worth of shares. Or you have companies that are trading maybe 50 million shares a day, but the stock trades at $1, so you're talking about $50 million worth of shares traded in a day. So you can see it over here where it says dollar volume. Okay. So the dollar volume is, as it says, what's the volume in dollar terms? Over here, you have the VWAP, which the VWAP, what it stands for is volume weighted average price. So when you're looking at stock, you can be looking at the opening price for the day. You can be looking at the closing price, the low or the high. They're not bad. Every one of them has their use, but to know the real volume, dollar volume of a stock, you need to take into consideration the VWAP, which we can go further into detail in another episode of the podcast. We can talk about what the VWAP is. We can run an exercise, try to see how the VWAP is calculated so you can better understand what it is. But what we're using it for right now is to know the dollar volume. All right. So we know for the whole week, starting on the 27th, which should be this week, it has traded 105.8 million shares at 0.0018, which equals $190,000 worth of shares traded. Now,
So just to say, for an investor who want to come in and buy $1 million out of the stock, probably not a good idea, right? Like,
no,
it will be very, very hard for him to get out of the position in case of things are hitting south. So this is why the liquidity,
or get in without pumping the stock.
pumping the stock. Correct. Because there's not a lot of sellers, there's not a lot of buyers. So this is why for us, it's very important when we're trying to buy equity in a company. This is the stuff we look at in order to understand the size of the position we want to get, because you don't want to be 100% of the daily volume. And when you sell or when you buy, because again, you can either pump the stock or dump the stock when you're doing moves like that. So this information is very, very important.
That's a very good point. And let's say that you wanted to try to find out. Let's say that you wanted to get into the stock. Let's say that you wanted to buy $1 million worth of AITX. So you can see over here, you can change it to daily liquidity, and you can see how it has been trading in the past. So you can see that there are some good days, there are some bad days. There's where it traded $240,000 worth of shares, and there are days where it traded $52,000 worth of shares. All right, so you can try to come up with a strategy to trade this. So you can say, you know what, I'm gonna buy. I know that it has traded, let's say, an average, let's call it $150,000 worth of shares. So you can say, hey, I want to be 10% of that. So you want to buy $15,000 worth of shares every day until you get to the $1 million you want to invest. And you can see over here and try to plan ahead to see the liquidity, how it has been, to see how many shares you can realistically buy, either without pumping the stock, or how many shares you can sell without driving the stock to the ground. So let's do an example. Let's look at a blue chip stock. So let's go ahead and look at Apple. Apple is going to be trading billions of dollars worth of shares a day. So it's not really an issue, right? But if you go to a smaller stock, let's look at Hover again, which we're talking about a couple of minutes ago. You can see that the liquidity is really not that good. So if you wanted to invest $1 million, you're gonna pump the stock and you're gonna lose money at the end of the day. When the trade ends and you want to sell your shares, you're gonna have paid a higher price than you should have. So
correct. And I think we shouldn't use the words good and bad, because for some investors who wants to get in with a $10,000 position, this is a great company, because in those type of companies, if they're going to execute on their plan, the stock right now is at 50 cents, and because there is not so many outstanding and free flow shares, then if the company will do what they're supposed to be doing, what they're talking about doing, there's going to be a nice multiples to make. So on a 10,000, you can make great investment. But again, it can go the other way around. So this is a more high risk, high reward than a blue chip company like Apple that has billions of dollars in liquidity on a daily basis.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I said bad because I was still in the $1 million investment.
Investment, correct.
Yeah, so if you're investing $1 million, this doesn't look good. You're gonna have to be very smart about it. If you're stocking, I just want to put in a couple $1,000 in the stock, you look at the volume and you can conclude that the stock is going to be able to hold your $1,000 without either pumping the stock or driving it down to the floor when you go ahead and sell.
Yeah, because you're going to be a very small percentage of the volume.
Exactly. And you can also look at the monthly.
And I love that. That's one of my favorite features too, that you're able to do daily, weekly, monthly. It's able to kind of show you patterns, trying to kind of understand what happened. Like even in this case right now, what happened in January that this company traded $21 million worth, and the next month it went to 4 million, and then 2 million, and almost 2 million again. So as an investor, I want to understand the reasoning behind it. Whether I'm an investor in the company already, I'm a shareholder, or I'm looking to be a shareholder. And this gives me right away red flags. I mean, it says, hey, what's going on? Let's take a look.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and let's go back to the hover example. So this is a very good picture. So right now we're just looking at March and April, and you're looking at $2.2 million worth of shares and almost 2 million for April. If you look back at January, it traded 21 million shares. So you could think, you know what? That's a very good trading volume. I like it. But when you look back and look at the history, you're going to be able to tell whether that $21 million is normal or not. Whichever the case is, at the end of the day, it's going to let you make a more smart decision about your investing. Sometimes, and it has happened to us before, that we look at the liquidity of a stock on a particular date, and you think, oh, that this is trading okay. It's trading $100,000 worth of shares, trading $1 million worth of shares. It's good. But once you look back at the history, you're gonna tell that it's not normal. And you say, yeah, today traded $1 million, but yesterday it traded $1,000. And it's important for you as an investor to realize, to know what the liquidity is, not just today, but going back. And you can go as back as you want. I mean, you can go as back as the company trades, of course. But you can go way back and realize, hey, maybe a year ago it was trading $10 million worth of shares. Maybe today it's only trading $1,000. So that's interesting. That's something that you need to know.
I think as an investor is one of the most important indicators to show the health of a company.
Yeah. And it could also very well be a trading strategy. Like you can look at the daily liquidity and say, you know what? Let's pick one. Let's see over here. April 14, it traded $215,000 worth of shares, and the day before 80,000, and the day after 88,000. So what happened here? So maybe you go ahead and look at the filings and you see that over here, or the filings or the press releases or whatever, you can look at the April 14, it released a filing or a press release. So you can know, hey, this company reacts very well to press releases or filings. So with that, you can devise a trading strategy behind it. Some companies react very good to press releases or filings. Some companies don't. Some companies you can put out 10, 20 press releases a day and the stock doesn't trade at all. Some companies, you just have to put in a press release for it to trade millions of dollars in a single day. And patterns like that, you can recognize by having the information that we are providing over here. This type of information, I think it's very useful to try to also find out any patterns in tradings of stocks, which, as everyone probably knows, pattern recognition is probably one of the biggest trading strategies that there are. It was the whole basis of technical analysis. So I think for that reason itself, this is a very useful tool.
Completely agree. I think this was great. I think We walked through a lot. We're going to do another episode like this next week where we're going to go through the dilution tracker in more details, because I think this is our key feature and one of the most important ones. So I think we should do an episode just for that. But Paulo, I really enjoyed your demo. That was very, very good. You chose some nice companies, and I think it's going to be fun to keep track of them for the next few weeks and see what they've been doing. Feel free to add more companies here, and we can go next week and you can walk us through what you learned, what we find out. And yeah, guys, I'm excited for this. Very fun.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great it was very fun to explain it, and I think it's gonna be even more fun next week when we look at what the company's been doing.
And I'm really looking forward to our Vegas conference next year. Awesome, guys. See you later.
All right, guys. Thank you.